So today I am joined by Miss Latoya Johnson, who is the owner and CEO of
Yes.
Legacy Tobacco Company. So here's what I found very interesting because you do sell cigars, but you're not known as Legacy Cigars. Is there a reason for that?
Um, I don't know. It depends on the context.
Okay. Okay, so
It,
let's just
it, it
start.
depends on the context and how people know me.
Okay.
So people knew me initially as Sleek Smoke because that's how I started into this business about 4 years ago, 5 years ago now. And it was selling cigar accessories and custom cigar accessories. So most people, yes, call me Sleek Smoke still. But others, yes, they know me as Miss Legacy or Legacy for Legacy Cigars.
Okay.
Nowadays, here lately, people people are knowing me more for my association to Travel to Invest. So yeah, it kind of depends on the context.
Okay, okay. So let's talk about the Legacy brand in itself. I
Okay.
read your blog, and I know that the Legacy brand is coming from your great grandfather, but that
Yes.
your uncle was a tobacco farmer. So,
Yes.
why cigars? Was it because of your great grandfather, or was it more because of your uncle and his relationship to tobacco?
It's actually a combination. So I am the best way to describe it, I am no different than any other typical Southerner, right? In the South, we crop tobacco and cotton, especially in the Carolinas. That is predominantly what my family has done. That is predominantly what I've heard in my upbringing. Everybody did it, even down to my parents for a period of time. Everybody farmed tobacco. My aunt had tobacco farms, so on both sides of the family, really. But I learned the most from my uncle. He was the one at the time that was still farming tobacco. So the farm that he worked with, great family of ours at this point, they would always produce tobacco every year for Marlboro. So yeah, so for the longest time, we would go visit him in the summer. Of course, obviously during the summer and the late fall, that's what they were doing. So about this time of year in North Carolina, yeah, getting about mid-March because we're in March now. So about mid-March, you'll start seeing a lot of farmers starting put down their tobacco, if they're doing tobacco this year. And about September timeframe, late September timeframe, that's when they're starting to pull it up, but they're doing that in phases. So my firsthand experience with that was through him. And with him still being alive and all of that, what he taught me, I attribute a lot of that per se to him specifically. But overall, from my family perspective, everyone did tobacco.
So growing up, did you have to go out and help out in the tobacco fields growing up? Like
I did
my
not.
aunt had, I mean, my family had farms. I listen, I'm scared of farm animals, so I wasn't the one that just wanted dealing with their farm animals. But I know growing up as
Right.
kids, we were expected to do that. So were you expected to do that during the summer?
By that time, no, there was no expectation for me to doing that. By that time, my dad was in the military, and my mom was a department store manager for Sears for the longest time. So by the time they were of a certain age, honey, they wanted nothing to do with it. So, so it was not a requirement for us.
Okay.
So yeah, for us,
So
it was just a matter of just watching. And if I wanted to go, they would let me. Like my parents did teach us like what it was like picking cotton even, and that was the worst.
Oh, listen, I drove through North Carolina and I saw the cotton fields. I had to get out and take a picture because I was just so fascinated by it. I
Yeah.
did not know that they had thorns on it. I'm like, how
Yeah.
is this? I'm like, oh, I couldn't. First of all, the bugs
Yeah,
got
it's
me.
not easy to pull and you're trying to grab it. A part of it feels kind of soft, but no, baby, it's not. You really digging and pulling at that.
Wow.
Um, And for my family, we laugh about it all the time, right? Like it's our snowy season. You get to see all the cotton out,
Oh, wow.
cotton out at a certain time. And then especially when they start to harvest it, then for
Mhm.
us it's like, oh, look at the snow on the ground because they leave so much. And then the reality hits you. They used to beat us for that.
Right.
So now they're machines,
Right,
get a
right,
good bit, but it leaves half the field.
right.
Yeah.
Wow. So as you have three cigars, the I am,
Yes.
I don't know if I'm saying it right, Cohen.
Correct. You
Cohen.
yes.
Okay. See, I was in education. I always wanted to make sure I said people's names
Yes.
correctly.
You
The
said it
Cowan
correctly.
and the hold it next generation.
Correct.
Okay, so tell me about those three cigars. Which one was your first one?
Um, there wasn't really a first one because I did all three at the same time.
Oh wow, you like literally jump right in.
I did. Listen, me getting into this was a whole jumping out the gate.
Mhm,
Was not expected because I actually planned for this years down the road. And it just kind of came about like that, and it
mhm.
came about for me doing all three at the same time.
Wow.
I wanted a cigar that with a little bit of flavor, but I didn't want to lose the essence of being able to smoke the tobacco really. So
Mhm.
that's where the IM came from, and in being kind of an infused cigar with the coffee and vanilla.
Ooh,
The
ooh,
next
whoa, wait,
generation,
hold it.
uh,
Two of my most favorite things.
yes, because well, in our initial iteration of this, we really was trying to stretch, like we was trying to give you a spiked coffee because
Mhm.
it was rum, vanilla, and coffee.
Oh.
But we just kind of stuck with the coffee vanilla flavors.
Mhm.
And the second one, the next generation, again, I still wanted to keep with the essence of being able to have the tobacco,
Mhm.
but something a little bit smoother and kind of give you some sweetness, but not really.
Okay.
So for that one, the master blender at the time, his family had a particular recipe of kind of doing kind of like a sugary type of thing to put on the cap of the cigars.
Mhm.
So we did that one for the next generation. And then for the Cowan, it was it was a go for all of the people who love the medium to full body cigar. So that's what we did with that one.
So which one is your favorite?
My favorite is between the next generation and the I am.
Okay. All right. So is it because of the flavoring of it or the sweetness of it, or is it because it's more of a medium full body?
Because it's of a medium. So for the next generation, it's because it's a medium full body. And for the I am, yes, it's for the flavoring. I'm a coffee girl.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I figured I would have one for myself.
Okay.
And that's what that one was. But
Okay.
ultimately, my favorite is definitely the next generation because depends on how you cut that cap, is how much of what you get or you don't get of the sweetness. But the overall profile of that one, I loved it the most.
Okay. So what was the hardest part for you of learning? Well, you were already in the cigar business by doing the cigar accessories. So
Mhm.
what was the hardest part from going to accessories to now producing cigars?
Um, Understanding what people's likes when it came to smoking a little bit differently. I understood how people like to have the experience smoking. Like you're going somewhere, you're wanting this to make it easier for you to smoke, or you want that to look a certain way. This time it was within the taste, it was within your palate. So that was kind of the transition that I had to lean on other people for to really kind of get that understanding. Once I got it, it was like, oh, okay, um, this is what we can do.
Mhm. So being a woman in this industry, I know it's very hard because I've spoken to a lot of different women that have cigar brands. So what is your obstacle? Like what obstacles are you overcoming like on a day-to-day basis that you might see your counterparts not really having to deal with?
Ooh, that's a struggle because it depends on how we're in this industry. If I can be frank,
Sure.
because me and my cigar bestie talk about this all the time, cigar candy. It really depends on how you do your brands. If you're buying your brands kind of already off the shelf and you just got to put a band on it, that's not going to be the same obstacle I have when it comes to trying to import tobacco. So the biggest thing for me when I first got into this was shipping, was
Mhm,
understanding the ability to ship tobacco, the actual packaged goods into the country.
mhm.
And what I was finding, whether it was men or women, whatever alike, everybody kind of had this struggle or didn't quite have the answer. And if they had the answer, they weren't really willing to share the answer. And others, it was a matter of, well, I don't have to go through that. I don't deal with that. So it's like, wait, how do you have cigars and you don't have to how do you
Right.
not have to do this? How do you not have an importer's permit? So for me, that was the struggle for the longest time. And once I kind of worked through that challenge, it was like, oh, okay, now I got it. Now here's two providers that anybody can use, just set up an account, DHL, UPS. But there's a means of how to do that.
Mhm.
Um, and then two, it was just now I need to get more acquainted with um, customs brokers, understanding which customs brokers can help you, which ones cannot. Um, and once you build those relationships and freight forwarders, that made it easier. Now on this side, it's the manufacturing piece. It's working with Travel to Invest. It's managing the operations within a cigar factory where we're the primary owners. And now you have to deal with cultural barriers. Now you have to deal with language barriers that I realize is a challenge. And it leaves me to ask a lot of questions sometimes, like, how are y'all doing this? Like,
Mhm.
I'm hearing y'all say y'all got factories.
Right.
Did y'all not deal with none of these? How does this? So it makes you really kind of understand what that factory ownership deal really looks like.
Wow. Wow. So
Yes.
are you traveling to the Dominican Republic
Yes.
or so you're going down there and you're seeing where your
Yes.
plants are. And are you
Yes.
walking through those fields? Like I'm always so fascinated by it.
So not necessarily. I'm seeing where the plants are. I obviously going there, I see where a lot of different farms are, but not necessarily my tobacco. Um, for the factory I was going through before, they typically already procure the tobacco and have it in factory first. Now with the tobacco, the factory I'm with, it's kind of the same context of the same thing. Just the difference is they get tobacco from a central source
Mhm.
being in the area we are and how the company is established. So we're able to go get and look at the same type of tobacco that everybody else looks at.
Okay.
We're able to look at tobacco that goes to these larger factories, even, right? The ones we are so familiar that come with out of the DR,
Mhm.
where they go buy tobacco in most cases, the same place we go.
Well, and I also found out and because I'm a learner, I like to know things. So I also
Uh-huh.
found out that there are different grades to the tobacco.
Yes.
Like I was like, I just thought it was just a tobacco plant. Now, when your uncle was doing farming, did he have to worry about different grades of his tobacco because he was making it for the cigarette company, or it was
They
just
did. So they did to a degree, but not so much really like we do in the cigar industry. And that was the transition for me, right? Is understanding that.
okay?
I just know tobacco, seed tobacco. I know which parts of the tobacco plant goes at what time, what's picked, what time, what costs the most money. So in this regard, for the cigar industry, the lajeros, the leaves at the bottom, um, obviously those are the strongest, but for the cigarette industry, well, those are the most money.
Right, right.
That's why those are picked last. Those are used at a certain time. But yeah, that process was different, and that was another transition for me to learn.
And it seems that you probably had um more of an advantage because you did come from a tobacco farming family.
Yes and no. Um, Not really, like I said, outside of just the picking and seeing, there wasn't a lot that we were taught. So that left me to be able to go back and ask questions when I could. So that's where my uncle comes into a great play of being able to ask those questions now and see how the two kind of tie and relate together.
Okay. So on average, on average, because most people say, well, I smoke my own, I smoke my own brand, but on
Mhm.
average, how many of your own cigars are you smoking to make sure that they are the right quality?
Um, I
Or
would
do
say
you?
about
Because maybe you don't smoke them, but you can tell.
sometimes I don't, but I do every time we do like new production. So I always smoke from the new production. So every time I get a new shipment in, I always save a couple aside to myself in that moment. Smoke them again when I first got them to make sure this batch matches the last batch. There were no changes, no differences. I'd wait a period. I'd smoke them again, maybe in about a month or two, just to make sure consistency between this batch and the next last batch. And then I always keep some from the previous batch.
Okay.
So like I would have got an order in 6 months ago, right? And now here's another 6 months. I'm getting another shipment coming in. I'll have that one from the 6 months ago shipment. I'll smoke it, then I'll smoke it in comparison to the other one about a month or two after I get it. Make sure that, hey, we're still in the same, there's no changes, there's no inconsistencies.
So
So that's
so doing while you're doing this, has it ever come a time that you got a new batch and it just did not smoke like the first batch?
yes.
And like what is that process like? Do you have to send them all back?
So no, so I don't send them back. I will put them in the market. By that time, I'm asking a lot more questions of my customers. Get their impact and their feedback of what they see change. Like I don't say the change. That's the moments where I'm asking for feedback the most because maybe the change is a lot to me, but very subtle or not at all to them. So I don't want to send everything back.
Okay.
So those are the times where people are like, she kept asking me about, yep, I'm asking you because
Right.
something wasn't right to me. But as long as you have no problems with it, I'm good. But
Okay.
I'll go back to the factory and address saying, hey, we did this one. It didn't quite taste like this one. Is there something that changed? Can you go back and look at what happened, what we were doing? And the factory that I was working with, the master blender at the time, he was really amazing about that.
Hmm. So how many times do you go back and forth to the DR for this part of your cigar business?
Initially, it wasn't very often. I might make it once a year. Now, what I'm doing, I'm about once every 3 months.
I mean, because who
Yes,
doesn't like that weather, right?
yeah, absolutely. Because let me tell you, when I went in January and it was cold here, going over there, honey, I was like, yes, this is it for me. I got there and it was rainy.
Oh wow.
However,
Right.
the sun was shining and I could sit out and relax. I was good.
Right.
I was out of the cold. That's all that mattered to me at the
Yeah, because
time.
anytime you can get out the cold is always a good thing.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
tell me, where do you see Legacy Tobacco Company going? And let's just break it down in 1 year and in 5 years.
Ooh. Um, so for me, it's to be more than just a brand of cigars. So that was my ultimate goal for Legacy Tobacco Company, as is, which I named it as such, not for a specific brand. Um, it is to go into various lanes and avenues with the cigars, but also to do more than just the cigars. So it is to be a shipper. It's to answer some of those shipping questions, problems, issues, or concerns that other brand owners might have. It is to be a source or distributor for other brands, and then a means to be able to help other brands get started.
Oh, see,
So that's between the 1 year to the 5 year of what we're doing.
right.
So it's to have a hand in doing some of everything and then having the cigars just kind of become like a cool byproduct, but not the overall business model for Legacy.
That sounds so amazing because a lot of times when people find success in one thing, they don't really want to share it, for
Yeah.
fear that it's going to take away from them at some point. But
Yes.
because you are a legacy, your company is a legacy to your family. So at the end of the day, this is always going to be your legacy.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yes.
so now, do you foresee do you want your cigars to be in, you know, hundreds of brick and mortar stores, or do you want to keep it as a smaller boutique brand?
Obviously I want to see it in more lounges. But right now, kind of the way we're looking at it, it's kind of a dual, we're kind of in a dual mix. Um, being whereas if I can be in other countries internationally, and tapping into that market, um, domestically being in other lounges or just being exclusive to events and things like that.
Mhm.
I'm kind of traveling in multiple lanes to see
Okay.
what fits the best.
So do you do a lot of events?
Yes, yes.
So,
And this year I'm doing a lot more. Cigar Candy and I are doing one that's going to be consistent every first Saturday from April to November. So
oh,
yeah, we're
wow.
actually going to do more this year than
Mhm.
last year.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm so happy that I got to sit down and chat with you. I'm so glad that I stumbled upon your Instagram. And the reason why I stumbled upon you, not that I wasn't looking, but I
Right.
I follow a cigar lounge named Legacy. So when
Yes.
I saw it, I was like, when did they get a new Instagram page? So it made me go more into your page, and then it made me,
Yeah.
I read your blog, which is amazing, so I hope you start that up some more.
Yes.
As
I
if you
started
don't
off
have enough
on
to do, right?
oh, it's crazy enough. That's where I started, were with blogs because I love writing.
Wow.
With everything else going, I had not had the opportunity to get back in reposting them again. So,
Okay.
but I did set that as a mission to go do this year to at least add a couple more.
Yeah, and so I read the blog and I was like, oh my God, this is like so fascinating. Your great grandfather and then your uncle. And I'm like, man, to have all of that knowledge right at your fingertips almost
Yes,
is it has to be. And I'm sure your uncle is so proud of you.
he is. And honestly, I tell people all the time, like, even if I just stop doing this tomorrow, as long as I made him smile, because he'll take a stick, he'll go back to like he still lives in the country. Like
Mhm.
he lives in Benson, North Carolina. So as long as he's out around his friends, other tobacco farmers, and he's with the cigar and smiling, I feel like I've done something worth the hard work that they've done over the generations.
Yes. And
That it means something, and it's not just something that they did for somebody else,
mhm.
but it's something that we can have that's being done for them.
Oh, that is so beautiful. That is beautiful. That is beautiful.
Like
I mean,
that's just the philosophy that's why I do what I do,
mhm.
right? Again, like I said, I'm no different than any other Southern girl. In most families, and not to sound kind of racist or stereotypical, but the reality was where whites could make money in certain areas and do certain things and had access to do, and blacks working for them to do that. There's not very much that blacks had to be able to show for that work.
Mhm.
And for me, doing this is what I wanted to show for my family and doing that work.
Oh, wow. And that's amazing. And
Yes.
as part of the cigar community, I am so happy that you are doing that and that we will get to, have legacy cigars that we
Yes.
can, and I don't have any yet. So I have to get some because you
I
have
do.
me at coffee and vanilla. So I mean, I already think that that's
And
gonna
I
be
know,
fine.
and I'm sold out of those right now, and I'm trying to get them back.
Oh no. Well, put me down on the wait list. I'm sure there's a wait
I
list.
surely will. I surely will.
But I thank you for joining me today. So tell everybody where they can find you.
So you can find me on all social media platforms at Legacy Tobacco Co. Again, Legacy Tobacco Co. And then online at legacytobaccoco.com. And then you can also find me at Travel to Invest DR. So anything associated to Travel to Invest DR, RD, that's where you can find me, from events to products to you name it. We're somewhere. I'm somewhere in between.
Okay. I mean, and you know what? And I love how you have aligned yourself with a lot of um industry professionals so that you're learning from the
Yes.
inside as well. You're not just
Yes.
waiting for people to bring that information to you. You're going out and finding it. And that's why women rule the world. I'm just saying.
Yes, we do kick butt and take names. We're pretty awesome about it.
Exactly. Exactly. So thank you for joining me today. Thank you for taking time
Okay.
of your out of your day to join me. And I look forward to having a cigar. And when I do, I gotta have you back because then I gotta talk to you
Sure.
about the experience that I have with the cigar. So I hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday, terrific Tuesday, as I call it. And I hope everyone goes out, checks out her website, looks her up on Instagram, Facebook, um, all of her online, Legacy Tobacco Co. CO, not COE. Don't try to get cute with it. It's just Legacy
Right.
Tobacco
It's
Co.
so
So thank you for
real
joining
simple. I
me.
keep it real simple.
Right. And keep it simple. Okay. So thank you for joining me. Have a
Thank
great
you for
rest of your
having
terrific
me.
Tuesday. Bye bye.
Bye bye.